At the end of the day, Yuna folded laundry in the media room and found a small velvet bag under the throw pillows. It was not the right velvet bag. Inside lay a charm bracelet and a receipt from a resale boutique that moved heirlooms discreetly. On the receipt, whole pending appraisal, vintage camellia hairpin. Her ribs made a cage around everything that wanted to jump. She slid the bag back exactly where she had found it and did the difficult thing. She sat very still until the truth in her head stopped sprinting and started walking toward a door with a handle. After midnight, when the house pretended to sleep, Yuna wrote a note in tidy handwriting on paper that smelled faintly of starch. She put it in an envelope and slipped it under Hyejin's door. In the morning, Hyejin entered the kitchen with her phone in her hand and nothing in her face. She placed the envelope on the counter without opening it. "I saw it," she said. You saw it," Yuna corrected gently. "You still haven't read it. Is this where you threaten me?" Hyejin asked, trying on defiance like a jacket a friend said looked good. "This is where I remind you," Yuna said, "that I promised to hold your secret until keeping it hurts. It hurts now." "You don't know why I did it," Hyejin said, voice climbing a rung too high to reach. "I don't," Yuna said. "Tell me." Hyejin's shoulders dropped until the expensive fabric draped like a confession. "My friend Jae-yoon," she said, looking at the door instead of Yuna. "Her brother was in an accident. The hospital asked for money up front because the insurance She stabbed the air with the corner of her phone. "It doesn't matter. I didn't have it and I didn't want to tell my mother because she would have said something about strangers and responsibility and optics. So I took it. I meant to return it before anyone noticed." Her voice broke at meant. "And the boutique receipt?" Yuna asked. "I took it for appraisal to get a loan," Hyejin said. "They said to leave it. I was going to pick it up the next day." "But the next day," Yuna said. Director Choi was already smelling the air. Hyejin nodded, biting her lip until it turned the color of a bruise. "I panicked," she said. The two words everyone uses on the day they learn panic is not a shield. "Why didn't you tell your mother the truth?" Yuna asked. "Because she would think I did it to get attention," Hyejin snapped, then immediately softened. "Because she thinks I only move for cameras. Because I don't know how to be small enough to be forgiven." "You don't have to be small," Yuna said. "You have to be true." She slid the envelope toward her. "Read it." Hyejin opened the note. Yuna had written, "I promise to hold your secret until keeping it hurts you or someone else. It hurts everyone now. Let me walk with you into the truth so you do not arrive alone. Blade, then balm. Yuna." Hyejin folded the paper along the same crease 3 times, then inhaled through her nose like a swimmer sighting the shore. "Will you come with me to the boutique?" she asked. "Yes," Yuna said. They took Mr. Park's car. He watched them in the mirror and did not ask, which is the same as saying, "I will help you because you already look like you are carrying enough." The boutique sat on a quiet street where people pretended they had nothing to sell. The man at the counter recognized the hairpin. The second Yuna said camellia. He looked at Hyejin, then at Yuna, then at the door. "We are careful," he said. "We are too today," Yuna said. "We want it back." He hesitated. Mr. Park appeared in the doorway like an argument with arms. The man opened a drawer and brought out the velvet box. "It is a very old piece," he said. "It carries the past like a scent." "It carries a mother," Yuna said. He did not ask for money. Later Yuna realized she had looked like someone who would pay with whatever she had, including blood. In the car, Hyejin held the box on her lap, as if it might leap. She stared out the window and asked the city, "How do you tell a mother you stole from her mother?" "You tell her why," Yuna said. "You give her the chance to choose who she is." At home, the house was pretending to work while listening for a verdict. Yuna found Madame Shin in the sitting room with a magazine she was not reading. "Madam," Yuna said. She placed the velvet box on the low table. "Please open it." Madame Shin did not do drama, she did control. But her hands shook like someone who was finally allowed to be her age. She opened the box, and the hairpin looked up like a daughter who had left and come home and could not explain what she had seen. Madame Shin reached for the pin, then stopped. "Where?" she asked, not looking at either of them. "At the boutique," Hyejin said, voice quiet. "I took it. A friend needed money for a hospital deposit. I thought I could return it before the story found me." Madame Shin did not speak for a full handful of breaths. Yuna counted them to give her something to do with the part of herself that wanted to fill the space. Hospital? Madame Shin said finally, her voice finding its feet. Who? Hyejin told her. Not every detail, enough to make the shape of it. I didn't tell you because I thought you would tell me charity has a protocol, she said. And I needed a miracle, not paperwork. Madame Shin closed the box and placed both hands on top of it, as if to keep history from escaping again. You took your grandmother's spine to support your friends, she said, and you left this house to collapse on another woman. She looked at Yuna then. And you. I promised to keep her secret, Yuna said before the accusation could be shaped. I promised to keep it until keeping it hurt. Today it hurt. I brought it back and brought her too. Director Choi appeared in the doorway with his clipboard, sensing a meeting he had not been invited to. Madam, shall I... You shall sit down, Madame Shin said without moving her head. Director Choi, who did not sit for staff, sat. Chairman Han entered on the last of the exchange, took one look at his wife's hands and knew the weight they covered. Explain, he said, but not to Yuna. He looked at his daughter. Hyejin did. She cried without performing it, which is to say she let water fall from her eyes without adjusting her face. Chairman Han listened, then rubbed his forehead, as if the skin there held a map he could consult. We will pay the hospital directly, he said, and we will take the hairpin out of circulation. He glanced at Director Choi. And we will update the part of our house that mistakes suspicion for intelligence. Director Choi's mouth was a straight line, looking for a hill. Sir, write this down, Chairman Han said. Your job is to keep wolves out, not to bite shepherds. Director Choi swallowed something that might have been pride. Madame Shin picked up the hairpin again. She looked at her daughter and saw herself at an age when a decision cost her reputation. She saw a night with her own mother when the words, I forgive you, had needed 3 hours to cross the room. Yuna, she said, did you suspect before you found the receipt? Yes, Yuna said. The smell in the hallway the night she returned. The way she held her hands like they were hiding something expensive. She held Madame Shin's gaze. And the look on your face when you discovered it was gone. There is a shape grief makes when it's about a person and a different shape when it's about a thing. This grief had both, I thought. The story is not finished. You didn't tell me, Madame Shin said flatly. I promised not to, Yuna said, until keeping the promise hurt more than breaking it. Convenient, Director Choi muttered. Difficult, Yuna corrected, not looking at him. Convenient would have been to let the wrong person be blamed and keep my job easy. Silence took a sip of the room. Then Madame Shin stood and fastened the hairpin into her hair with the care people reserve for prayers. The pin looked like it had found its sentence again. Hyejin, she said, you have always treated truth like a camera. You point it outward and tell it where to look. Today you learn it has a second lens. She turned to Yuna. And you? You make promises like a person who understands furniture. What can bear weight, what needs a shim. Stay. You are going to fire her? Hyejin asked. Shame and defense elbowing each other. I was going to let a process built to find convenience find a person, Madame Shin said. I am grateful we arrived here first. That night, after the house remembered how to breathe, Min-jae sat on the kitchen stool, swinging his legs and watching Yuna wash rice. Teacher Yuna, he said seriously, what is the size of today's wind? Large, she said. Big enough to carry apologies without dropping any. Are apologies heavy? He asked. They are light when they start, Yuna said, measuring the water with her palm. They get heavy when you try to carry them alone. Better to hand them to the person you wronged. 2 people can carry almost anything. You're small, Min-jae observed. I am good at balance, she answered, and he laughed like someone discovering an extra pocket. Word of the hairpin's disappearance and return never reached the paper. Inside the house, though, it changed routes. Director Choi found work elsewhere almost immediately. Young people with clipboards are never unemployed. The staff had a meeting where they said the kind of things that make cheeks warm and then did things that made the house kinder. They wrote down what doors stayed locked and who touched the keys. They agreed to ask questions before they made stories. They put away a certain glint in the eye that some people mistake for competence and is really hunger to blame. A week later, Madame Shin asked Yuna to bring tea to the study. "Sit," she said, and Yuna did, in the chair most likely to keep her back straight. "When I told you to neutralize your ribbon, I thought I was keeping the house free of noise," Madame Shin said. "I have discovered silence makes its own mess." She reached into the drawer and took out a small brooch, a simple silver reed tied with gold. "Wear this," she said, "on the days you are tempted to believe you are a pair of hands. You are also a person with a spine." Yuna took the brooch. It was not valuable in a store. It was priceless in a life. "I will wear it when truth needs help standing," she said. "Thank you." "Thank me by telling me the truth quickly next time," Madame Shin said, and then ruined the severity by adding, "Please." "I will," Yuna said, thinking, "I will also hold your daughter to her own promise." Hyejin did not become kind overnight. She did not become crueler either. She texted less during meals and filmed more quietly. She told her followers that charity was not about brand partnerships. She visited Jae-yoon's brother in the hospital without posting. She came to the community library the Han Foundation had funded and read to children who did not know or care about follower counts. She sat on the floor and let a 3-year-old braid her hair badly, then took a photo that showed only the child's hands. One afternoon, she found Yuna in the library's back room, labeling boxes of donated books. "Do you think my mother loves me?" she asked, as if asking her throat permission to widen. "Yes," Yuna said, "because some questions are answered before they are asked. She loves you in the language she learned. You can teach her yours without mocking hers." Hyejin nodded, looking at the labels as if her name might be on them. "You could have destroyed me," she said, "with the receipt and the box and the truth. You didn't." "I did not save you," Yuna said. "I gave you the chance to save yourself." Hyejin leaned against the doorframe. "You sound like a proverb," she said, then added, "Thank you," with no prompting this time. "You're welcome," Yuna said. Months poured into the house and out into the city. Yuna kept the kitchens clean and the calendars visible and the edges of tempers sanded where she could. She studied in her room at night, essays from the public library about the ethics of care and the architecture of domestic power. She read them out loud to the camellia cup, which held the sound of her own mind, and offered it back softer. She wrote notes and slid them under nobody's door. She tied her ribbon when she was alone, and wore the silver reed on her collar when she needed to remember that spines can bend and remain spines. One evening, in late spring, the house held a smaller dinner. Not donors, but family, plus 2 friends who had earned cutlery. The table felt unusually round. Chairman Han cleared his throat. "We have mispronounced certain words in this house," he said. "We said loyalty when we meant silence. We said suspicion when we meant laziness. We said neutral when we meant afraid. We are learning." He looked at Yuna. "We are learning from people we hired to carry plates." "People who carry plates notice where everything wobbles," Yuna said, before she could stop herself, then covered her mouth. The table laughed, including Madame Shin, who surprised herself with the sound. Min-jae raised his glass of barley tea. "To teacher Yuna," he said solemnly, "who saved a hairpin and a person." "To teacher Yuna," they echoed, and Yuna learned her name, could sit in the middle of a table and not make the silverware jealous. That night, she placed the silver brooch and the ribbon side by side on the windowsill so the moon could decide which to bless. The city breathed, the buses sighed, the pine argued politely with the wind. She thought of the promise she had made in a hallway, smelling of storm, of the cost of keeping it, of the more expensive cost of breaking it too late. She thought of Blade then Balm, of Mr. Go's shears, of Aunt Myung's dumplings, of Min-jae's wind scale, of Mr. Park's quiet. She thought of Madame Shin fastened to her mother through an object that knew what it meant to hold. She thought of Hyejin sitting on a library floor where all the stories were free. The next morning, Hyejin found Yuna in the courtyard with a broom and a face already counting the day. "I went back to the boutique," Hyejin said, "to pay the man for not making it harder." "You don't have to tell me that," Yuna said. "I know," Hyejin said. "I wanted to say it to someone who would hear the part that matters." "What part is that?" Yuna asked. That I am learning to choose the truth before it embarrasses me, Hyejin said. It's slower than I thought, but I think I will keep some promises to myself now. Yuna leaned on the broom. What promises? To say thank you without a camera watching, Hyejin said. To ask my mother to teach me her language. To forgive myself for the sentence I wrote with panic. She looked at Yuna. And to never borrow a spine again. You have your own, Yuna said. It was hiding under a ring light. They stood there while the morning decided to commit. Yuna felt the day expand to make room for the version of Hyejin who had said those words. She felt her own ribs relax, as if the bird that had been trying to escape had realized it lived in a body with doors. Later that year, at the staff New Year's dinner, Aunt Myung banged her ladle against a pot and announced, "A toast to resolve, to recipes that work even when you forget an ingredient, to people who live like kitchens, warm, necessary, and sometimes messy. To mess," Mr. Go said, grinning, "where all the good things begin." To blade and bomb, Yuna added, and they all laughed and touched cups and took bites and decided to forgive one or two things in advance. If this story has a moral, and it does, because houses like this require one, it is simple enough to carry in a pocket. Promises are not ropes to tie the truth. They are hands to hold it until everyone is strong enough to carry it together. And if there is a second moral, it is the one Yuna whispered to the camellia cup the night the hairpin came home. Kindness is not the opposite of firmness. Kindness is the decision to make the cut that lets the healing land.